My name is Christel Banks. I am a Seventh-day Adventist. I have been baptized 2.5 years ago. And I'm here today to give my testimony, how I found Jesus Christ. I would like to pray a little prayer before I start. Almighty Father in heaven, I ask you to be with us here today. You know my heart, and you know that I'm not here for myself, but to bring testimony for all those miracles you have done for me, how you have sustained me throughout my life, how you have brought me to find you in all those trials you had to put in for me to see, in order for me to see how precious you are to us. Father, I pray to you that this testimony reaches people who are still walking in the dark, who are asleep, who don't know that you exist. I pray to you also that my family, my children, my husband see this testimony and they find the way to your gate. I pray for all those people who nobody prays for, who have been forgotten, so you have mercy on them. I pray in Jesus Christ, Amen. My life story is actually my testimony. It started right from my birth, when I was a little child or just born. The Lord has saved me over and over and over. He has brought me forward, or I should say I've been born in Poland, which was 10 years after the Second World War. I am an after-war child. And the first time the Lord has saved me was just after I was born. The times in Germany at that time in Poland were very, very hard. There was no food available. People were starving everywhere. And obviously my parents and my siblings were in the same situation. I was just a year old, and my mother has breastfed me simply because of the reason that there was no food available. So she made the most out of it to give me as much nourishment as she could, but eventually she had to wean me off. Well, I declined because she has nursed me so long. I declined every food, and she couldn't sustain me any longer, and I wouldn't eat. So I got weaker and weaker and weaker until I eventually could not stand anymore at the age of 1 year. Our families were divided at that time. Half of my family, my mother's side, lived in Germany, half lived in Poland. We lived in the corridor, which was the part which was taken or divided off from Germany. When the war was finished, the Allied forces have given this part to Russia. And it was a stronghold also of the Roman Catholic Church. Anyhow, the communist regime was so strong that nobody was allowed to leave without a special permit. No letters were allowed in and out, and German people like who were forced to stay over their huts or wear watch constantly. Anyhow, my life was at stake, and my parents didn't know what to do, so they took the chance and they just decided to write a letter to the family in Germany, and they prayed that medication might be sent over, because there was no chance of getting any medication in Poland. There was no food, never mind medication. So what has happened? They prayed and prayed, and this medication came very quickly and just in time to get me saved. This was the very first time when the Lord has intervened in my life and saved me. My story carries on. When, or I should actually say, my father used to be a teacher. He went to university in Poland before the war. He wanted actually to become a priest, a Roman Catholic priest. And I don't know if you know, but when you're a priest, you can't get married. You have to be single because you basically married to God. That's the Catholic belief. But my dad met my mother, and he literally days before the celibacy vow, he has pulled back and decided not to join the Catholic Church. So he pulled out and became a teacher. This was after the war. This was the reason why we couldn't get a permit to leave Poland, because he was classed as a very valuable person to the communist regime. So we had to stay, and we weren't allowed to leave. It was a very hard life. We had to move ever so often. We had to move around from village to village. This was the system, the Russian communist system for teachers. I remember one morning when we were all still in bed, and there was this mighty banging very early in the morning. My dad got up because he thought there was an emergency, and he went to the door, and policemen were there, and they asked him his name. He said, "Yes, that is my name," and they just took him away without any explanation, just like he was in his pajamas and his dressing gown. My mother with 3 children, we were devastated. We cried and cried. We didn't know what was happening to us. So time went on. We didn't know what happened to our dad. Eventually we found out that he's been taken to prison and accused of spying or being a German fascist spy, something like that, because that is absolutely ridiculous, to be quite honest. Our goal was to leave Poland, to join our family, nothing else. Well, they took him away, they put him in prison without a trial, and he stayed in prison for a very long time. My mother, and with her 3 children at that time, we were quite small children. We had to leave our house at a notice of a few hours in the middle of winter, and nobody would put us up. Nobody would, because out of fear. Anyhow, the Lord has preserved us. Even then, we found sanctuaries here and there where people put us up where we could stay, and eventually, after a while, we moved over to an aunt around many corners. She had a house, and she put us up in a little attic room. We stayed there. We were quite happy. We had to swallow our pride, but we were quite happy. We had a sanctuary in there. Nobody knew we was there, and we just were happy we had somewhere to stay, even though we had to fight for food all the time. I remember then when my dad, or I should say my mother, didn't tell us that our dad would come back home. That was about 1.5 years after he was imprisoned. She didn't tell us he was going home that day, but she was strangely excited, and we realized that there was something going on, but we didn't know he was coming home. Anyhow, when he came home that day, we looked at him and we didn't recognize him because he was just skin and bone. And He was starved, he was a broken man. Anyhow, we rejoiced, we thanked the Lord when we rejoiced. And on that night, I can remember lying in bed, watching my parents talking and going to sleep. And I fell eventually to sleep, but I woke up in the middle of the night. I didn't know why. I tried to focus, but I couldn't focus. And I got up and I realized I had a very strong headache. So I went over to my mother, trying to wake her up. She didn't wake up. My dad eventually woke up, and my mom woke up and she tried to stand up, but she fell. Straight away she lost conscience. My dad jumped out of bed as fast as possible, and he realized, and he looked around and he realized there was something wrong. The whole room was filled with not with smoke, but with a very strange smell. So he ran to the door and to the window and opened both. And that's all I can remember about that night. I remember my parents talking and saying that we had a narrow escape. We had a little coal oven, and the front door has been left open, and coal and monoxide gas has escaped. And basically, if we would have slept through, we would have all died. So again, the Lord has to be blessed. He saved us over and over again. My next intervenience of the Lord was when He intervened when I became very sick and had to be admitted to hospital as a small child because I contracted hepatitis. That was another experience. He cured me of that with no effects. The only nothing left over from it. The only thing I was told by the doctors, I couldn't give blood because of that virus anymore. So, but that was a small price to pay for my life. Anyhow, we carried on. Eventually, after we applied again, we could leave Poland, and we were happy to go to Germany, and we got the permit. On the way, the train even broke down, and we thought we will never leave this forsaken land. But my mother had 2 geese with her. She took them for my grandma, and she sold them because tickets didn't get reimbursed, so we could buy new tickets and carry on. We arrived in Germany on the 1st of January 1966. I remember this day as if it was yesterday. It felt to me, I can compare that to like Moses has taken the people out of Egypt, out of bondage. That's how it felt to me entering Germany, because there was freedom there, and I could feel it with every cell of my body. I don't think anybody who has ever experienced being under oppression and deprived of freedom can imagine what that means. But we arrived there, we were reunited with our family in Germany, and the Lord has brought us out, looked after us. I had to learn a new language, which I've managed eventually, but times have changed. From being in Poland, being watched as a German outsider, in Germany I became a Polish outsider. Racism was always there in my life. Yes, I had to be integrated into German school. I learned the language. I struggled quite a lot. At the beginning it wasn't easy, but I got through it. But this time of my life has left a mark on me. I became a rebel, so to say, because I always felt that nobody took any interest in me, in helping me. Nobody cared about me. I became this stubborn child who was a loner, who didn't have any friends. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with me because now I was the Polish outsider. Many things have happened in that time which would be too long to explain now, so I just carry on. I became an atheist. I was brought up Roman Catholic, but there was not a lot of church in our house. There was not a lot of God talk. Jesus was never mentioned. So I became an atheist. I was quite happy with that. I was a realistic person. I never believed anything. I only believed what I could see, basically, or what I could rationally explain. Other things didn't exist for me. Yes, we did talk about angels and ghosts and UFOs, but that was more out of childish interest than anything else. I met my first husband after a while, and my daughter Simone was born, but happiness wasn't to stay very long, because my daughter died after 3 weeks on cot death, which was a turning point in my life. If I haven't believed in God before, this has just strengthened my atheist belief. I became angry. I cursed God. I said, God, if you're there, why did you do that to me? I don't believe in you. And I was angry. And anybody talking to me about God, I just had a laugh at it. My whole world fell apart like a cart house, and I wasn't taking in part in life for years to come, until eventually my mind or my brain went on reboot and life carried on. After I'm just jumping now a little bit, because I would like to mention, after I found Jesus Christ, I realized how much I must have hurt him. With what I've said, I'm sorry, with what I've said, he has protected me all his life, all my life, not his, all my life. He has protected me, and all I could say at that time was that I hate him. That realization made me so angry with myself and with all those things, with why does the devil exist? Why is Satan there? Why do we have? Because I didn't know anything about it. I had to find out what was going on, and I didn't know that it was all the devil's work. I found out afterwards that this was not God's will. But why it happened, I don't know. It's for him to know, not for me. One day, I'm sure I will know. Anyhow, life carried on, and my second daughter was born after a while. Monia, she's 37 now. I was an overprotective mother. Our marriage didn't last very long. I guess my first husband, couldn't cope with it, with the tragedy happening to us, so he took to drink and became an alcoholic, a very bad alcoholic. I couldn't cope with it any longer, so after 10 years marriage, we got divorced. But I had my daughter, and I was happy. I was a typical baby boomer, I should say. I enjoyed life after that. I've loved music and dance, and I was free as a bird, so to say. So I enjoyed life. After a while, I met my husband I'm married to now, who used to be a military policeman in the British Army. To keep a long story short, the next intervention from God came when after we got married, or to the marriage with my second husband. I became pregnant, but I was pregnant in a test tube, in a fallopian tube, which means an ectopic pregnancy, which I didn't know, and the Lord saved me again. I was rushed to hospital and had a major operation, but the Lord saved me again. But I was told I would only have, after that, a 50-50 chance of getting children, which was okay for me. It didn't, I thought to myself, 50-50 chance is better than 0 chance at that time. So life carried on, and I was okay with that. I thought things will sort themselves out. I wasn't worried. Exactly after a year, I became pregnant again, and as it happened, it was on the opposite side. It was ectopic pregnancy again. We were in Northern Ireland at that time, and my husband was on exercise. He wasn't there when that happened. I had my daughter there. She was just 8-9 years old. I was on my own. We just moved to Northern Ireland, and I just could run basically in the last minute to my next door neighbor. And I collapsed at the door. When I woke up, I was in hospital again, emergency operation. But I was told at that time that my fallopian tube had to be removed and I would not get a child in a normal way again. So my whole world collapsed after we realized that when my husband came to the hospital that we couldn't have any children together. It was like a bad dream, really to say. I pulled back from everybody. I drew my curtains around in my bed. I didn't want to see anybody, and I remember I was crying and crying and crying. I've given up by that time to even think about God. Didn't came into that equation. I never realized that I was living in complete error, and that was the reason why bad things happened to me, because God couldn't take care of me the way He would have liked to take care of me. Anyhow, when I can remember this situation, when I was lying in my bed and I was crying, and the curtain opened and an old lady came in, and she sat down on my bed side, and she took my hand. And she talked to me in this broad Irish accent. I couldn't understand her, but I just listened to her voice, and it comforted me. And she gave me this little card with this verse on it, and I'm sure many people know this verse. It is called Footprints. I still treasure that card after so many years. And when she was talking to me, I now realize that the Lord has sent me an angel to comfort me in my desperation, so to say, because I was very desperate. When I came out of hospital, we basically given into the situation that we were saying, okay, we can't have our own children, but we have one child, and that was our daughter Monia. We kept on going with our life, and then the miracle happened. The Lord has blessed me with our son. The doctors have told me I could not get pregnant in a normal way again, but I was pregnant again. And the Lord has blessed us. We didn't know at that time that the Lord has blessed us. But I was pregnant, our son was born, Sven was born. He's 25 years old now. And that's all I can say to that. People will think, people who don't know the Lord will think that can't be. But people who know the Lord know that He can do anything and everything. There were many more situations in our life, and it would take too long time to explain them all. How many times the Lord has intervened in my life to save me, to bring me to realize that He is there. All the trials I had to go through, He broke me down, He melted me down, He molded me again, and He made me what I am now. He brought me under His wings, and He made me realize that He is there. This happened after many things have happened. We were in England. There was this significant night. My husband and I went on a break to the Lake District, and we had a bed and breakfast in the middle of cow fields. Basically, it was a farm, and we went to bed on that night. And this was the time before I knew the Lord, but He spoke to me on that night, because He woke me up, and I can remember this voice in my head while I was sleeping very, very clearly. And He said to me, "Wake up." And He woke me up on that night, because since that day my life has completely changed. I have changed my profession. I used to be a personal assistant to managing director. I used to work in dolmetsching, in translating German, English, Polish. I was offered a job with aerospace here to take on a PE job, which I turned down. Everybody said to me, "You're crazy doing that," but I didn't want to go back to my old roots. I knew that this was not for me, so I looked for a job, and I became a carer. I cared for old people, and this appealed to me very, very much at that time. And the rewards of that job I can't describe, because I have given those people what they needed, and the Lord has blessed me. He showered me with the Holy Ghost. I can only try to describe the feeling of love and happiness which He has showered down on me many, many times. It's very, very hard to describe, but this was the time when everything has changed for me. I have never ever heard about Jesus Christ. I was an atheist, a complete atheist, Roman Catholic before, only on paper, never believed in God, and now my faith is stronger, my belief is stronger than I can describe here. Thanks to the Lord, He's brought me here, and I hope and I wish that this testimony of mine reaches as many people as possible, because I know that the time is short. I know that the Lord has blessed the seed of Abraham, and that all the seed of Abraham will come back to the Lord. He is calling His people back to Him. Times are coming to an end, and the Lord is wrapping up this world. The world is changing. The signs are all there. The world is changing. Everything is wrapping up, and the Lord will come, and He comes very quickly. How does it say? Like a thief in the night He comes. And He will be there, and many will be left outside. But I know that the Lord is long-suffering, and He will bring His people back to Him. Amen.